It's actually dripping out the exhaust. That is minging. Look at that. Look at that. Holy potatoes. And has failed. Aprilia factory Tuono 1100 with a little bit of a problem. Does this. And that's probably as much as it'll do. However, come down. It also leaks, so you can see it dripping. It's actually dripping out the exhaust. So we believe that what it feels like is happening. Now the customer believes it's like flooding the cylinders, but I don't think it's doing that because it's injected. It can't really do that. It's not like a carb bike where old carb bikes you'd have issues with the float valves not sealing properly, and then all of the fuel that's in the tank drains into the engine, into the exhaust. Really cool. Done it 1,000 times, but this can't really do that because it can only inject while it's on, and unless it's literally a massive problem, it just can't do that. It's not rational. What I think is happening is the fuel's bad. It's obviously not igniting it, so it's not burning off, and it's just injecting that, and it's going through the combustion and into the exhaust, and it's just filling the exhaust full of fuel. So I think that's what it is. It also feels slippy. So whenever you got fuel and it looks a bit shiny and it feels a bit slippy, usually it's bad fuel. Whether it's from a petrol station itself or something, you've got diesel in it, someone's put the wrong fuel in. So we're gonna go down that line first because there's no engine management lights on the bike. Everything electronically says it's okay. So we're gonna pull all the fuel out of it, put fresh fuel in it, possibly purge the system so we get rid of all of the old whatever's inside the injector rails, and then give it another run and see where we go. And we'll bring you along for the ride.
Okay, let's go.
Good time ever. Which also means the plugs are going to be fouled up as well, so we're going to have to take the plugs out, clean them, and then put them back in as well as part of the process.
Been exposed.
Exposed. It's going in there because it's then going to go in the bin. Not the actual bin, the waste fuel bin. Or waste oil, same thing.
I don't like my car being called a waste fuel bin.
Oh yeah, or the cameraman's car. Because as long as it's diluted down, it'd be fine. You could run it in something else. But the bikes are so sensitive to what fuel you're running them. If the fuel's not very good, you got no chance.
Wait.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I need to clean the fuel rail out, but I don't want to take the entire fuel rail apart and take all the injectors out because I don't think it's really necessarily worth it right now. So, because if the fuel was contaminated or whatever, flushing it through with fresh fuel will actually clean the injectors up, so I shouldn't need to take that apart. However, what I do need to do is to flush the system through. So we're going to blast it out. Now what's fortunate is on the RSV4, you have upper and second injectors. On the Tuono, which is this one, it doesn't have those upper injectors, but it does have the same fuel rail. So normally this has got a stopper in there onto the female connector. Now what I'm trying to do is if I blast it through, I've got the main feed from the tank here, and then I can blow it out from here. However, can't blow it out from there normally because it's got a valve in it and the valve won't be open. However, I can then connect my fuel rail to it, which is open the valve, and then I've got a clear hole for it to shoot through. So I'm going to make a bit of mess now because I'm going to blast it through with the airline just to get all of the fuel that's in there out, and then I'm going to inject the injector cleaner or throttle body cleaner in there as well, and then blast that through as well, and hopefully that should do me enough to be able to start the bike. So, well, once we've done this, then I'm going to be taking the plugs out, cleaning, well, we're going to be replacing the plugs, put new plugs in there, put fresh fuel in the tank, and then try again, see if we can make it go brew, brew, brew. So it's pushed all of the fluid out of it. So now I'm going to just use some intake clean. spray this in. Work this through the system. Whoa! And this isn't going to do it any harm because I'm not actually going any more force than what would have originally been in there. I mean, you can even see it on the gauge if you wanted to, look. Seeing as it's connected up. I'm not going above 3 bar. So now we're ready to finish cleaning the plug, while changing the plugs out. Yeah. Boom. Gotta do most of it. We need so yeah. That make a big difference. That air filter's minging. Look at that. Watch this. Woo! That's just one of them. They're all like that. That is minging. Look at that. Ugh. So the airboxes on these are in a couple of different bits, so you've got to take them off separately. There's tons of stuff that's attached to the airbox as well. Not as bad as the new Ducati V4s, but there's still lots of bits to them. So we've basically got to undo the velocity trumpets, or velocity stacks, take them all off. Then this will come away. Then we've got access to on top. Then we've got to do the bottom bits, which is the trunking for the ducts, move them out of the way. Then we've got access to the front bank of cylinders, and we'll pull the plugs out the front, clean them, check, well, we're not cleaning them, we're changing them, change them out, change the back ones, put a new air filter in it, clean everything, because this is grim. Look at that. Look at that, that is like powder. Look how bad that is. Look at that. Holy potatoes. That is minging. Imagine that's in your engine. Funny thing is the others aren't quite as, I mean they are pretty bad, but they're not as bad as that one. That is filthy. Good reason to get a better air filter, because that paper element OE one's just not doing the job. Okay, so plugs out. Yeah, you can see how wet they are. So the colour's not terrible. They're quite worn, because you can see that the central electrode's quite worn. But they're really, really, really wet. And it's shiny wet, which again indicates that the fuel's not very good. Yeah, it's the same. It's not as bad actually. It's not as wet as the others. Oh yeah. I'm looking at these as well, as the front cylinders aren't that grim, but that back right cylinder is dirty. Dirty. She dirty. When you're cracking off pen coils, this actually doesn't matter whether it's this type or just the normal one. You get the plug actually directly on the top. The easiest thing to do is once you've got the bolt cracked is don't just try and pull it straight up or use levers on it or anything like that. You're going to break them. The best thing to actually do is try and twist it. So if you twist it, you'll actually break some of the seal, and then it'll make it easier to pull out. And then once you have got it out, just wiggle like that. Before you put it back in, this is a seal. So, unlike we've seen on some of the other ones that we do, you'll find that these get corroded and then they act as a raw plug, and then the whole thing will just expand inside and then it'll lock inside the cylinder head, and then you'll never ever get them out. Well, not easily. So the easiest thing to do is if you make sure the seal is in good condition and then pop a little bit of grease on it as well, it'll help it seal better. So that's what we do every time we take pen coils out. We'll actually re-grease the seal and the rubber at the bottom before we put it back together again. Just so that, one, it makes it easier to take it off, and also it future-proofs it because it'll stop moisture getting into this. So sometimes as well, when you've got 4 cylinders and not necessarily all in order and you don't know what the order is, I mean, these are quite neat because it actually tells you what they are. But unless you know which one coil 1 is, do them one at a time. So this is our ugly cylinder, which there's a bit of grease on the top of that, which is quite good. The plug itself isn't in bad condition, but again, it's really wet. And then if you look at the center electrode, see how it's now like oval, not circular. When you look down the side, you'll see that it's eroded that center electrode, because obviously as it electric shocks it, it's like an electric eroder. It will actually eat away at that center electrode, and as you can see, it's already started to do that. So new ones anyway. I like how they've got a proper little gasket on them. I don't think I've ever seen them with a little tiny gasket like that on them. That's quite clever. Oh well, whatever. But this is going to need a lot of cleaning.
A million times better already.
I've got to clean it several times and make sure I blast out the cylinders as best I can as well, because everything's just super grubby. So, save me having other issues. Try my best to just clean it all off. It wasn't terrible, but it's just, especially with these pipes are super important. So, these two vacuum pipes that go to each cylinder, they go to obviously the pressure sensor. So that pressure sensor sells all this information to the ECUs about how aggressive each cylinder's working. Now, if there's a bleed on them, say if these are cracked, then it's going to make a big problem to the way the engine runs. So I need to make sure that they're okay while I'm here. So they've all been cleaned out now and cleaned all the way down. They don't look amazing, but they're damn sight better than they were. So we've got new plugs in, that's all been cleaned, the fuel line's all been cleaned out, so we're basically ready to throw the tank back on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave majority of the airbox off. I'm going to plug the ECU in, just dangling out the side, along with the other air temperature sensor and stuff, so that everything's plugged in. So I can run it, and it shouldn't have any engine management lights, but I should be able to see inside as well to see if anything's going on. Because if we have got an issue with injectors are just constantly live and they're just spewing fuel in there for some unknown reason, well, at least I'll be able to find that out fairly quick as well. So let's get to putting the tank on. Like for like, baby. Filled the tank, rebuilt the pump and everything, put fresh fuel in it, connected everything up, and then went to start it. Just basically to see if it obviously was the fuel. So as soon as we cranked it over, you cranked it over a couple of times and then it hydrostatically locked, which a hydrostatic lock is essentially you've got all the fuel has gone in, or liquid, let's just class it as liquid, it's gone into the cylinder, and then the piston then can't compress it. So it locks the engine, and that's what happened. Which ironically is what the customer said originally and what we thought it sounded like when we first tried to crank it, when he first dropped it off a couple of days ago. But it's just super uncommon for an injected bike to do that. It's really uncommon. The only times that can happen is if the ECU's failed, or an injector's stuck open, or you've got like really bad wiring and something's shorting out so the injector's open all the time. Because if you just imagine the injector's just a valve, so it's just an on-off, just opens and closes. So if it's open, all that fuel, as soon as the tank turns on, it's going to try and prime the fuel system. As soon as you crank it, it's just going to gush all that fuel straight in there. So like that's just not normal. So obviously it's not normal, but it's not common. It's not a common fault. So anyway, ran it, hydrostatically locked, pulled the plugs out, cranked it, boosh, got rid of all the fuel because it just pushes it all out, the cylinders. And now we're at this point now. So this point now is going, okay, what is it? Is it a stuck injector? Is it a bad signal? Is something, what's going awry? This is a little tricky to kind of take apart to be able to see whether it's a mechanical injector opening or whether it's the electric side of it. The electronic side of it's quite easy to diagnose. So all we've got is on the connector, you just look at the wire colours. So you've got an orange and green, and then you've got a yellow and trace. Now the yellow and traces are the signal, which is the earth trip side from the ECU. And then the orange and green is that's a common power. So that's your 12 volt feed to each one of the injectors. So we know that we're getting power because it seems to be activating the injector. What we needed to know was whether this is tripping correctly or whether it's just active all the time and injecting everything. So ideally you'd want to use a picoscope or an oscilloscope to be able to check the wave pattern on this. But because the injectors seems to be open like consistently, we don't need to see a pattern. We just need to see whether if it's earthing or not. So that is one thing we do. The other mechanical test would be to pull these plugs off, have the injector bodies up in the air so that you're actually able to see the injector, and then turn it on and see if it's priming still. Because if it's priming without the electronic plug plugged in, well obviously then we know that the mechanical side of it, which is the actual valve inside, is sticking. Now the problem with doing that test on these is it's really hard to get these off, and because it's the same as the Ducatis, the BMs, where they've got one use clamps on the actual throttle bodies, and they're a bugger to get to. We're not going to do that test. That'll be like a last resort test. So instead we're going to just check. We're going to check to see if we've got what signals we're getting to this plug. So we should be getting power, which we know we should be getting power. So we'll just double check to see if we're getting power, and then we're going to check the earth as well. Now the other thing that makes it sound a little bit more obscure is it's both of these two cylinders. The right set of cylinders are both doing the same thing. Both injectors are active when you first turn it on and when you're cranking. The left two don't, which makes it even more odd because it's even more less likely for the injector to be sticking. So we're going to test it now. And we're on. So for this test, super easy. We're just going to use a multimeter. We've got it on earth, and then we're going to just connect up to one of the pins. So for now, I'm just going to check to see what the power's doing. So it trips on, and then the relay clicks off and it goes off. When you crank it, it should just... Yeah, we've got power pretty much all the time. Now, the interesting bit is going to be the earth side of it. So what we want to know is what the tripped earth is doing. So right now, that should be 0. That should be that. That should be no continuity at all. As soon as I've got continuity, so if I just connect it to air, you can see what it's saying. It's saying like 30 ohms. So as soon as I've got this on right now, it means that as soon as I activate the power, so if I'm if I turn the ignition off and on, it's pumping fuel in there. So it shouldn't be injecting any fuel until I'm cranking, because it's got to inject at the right moment for when it's going to be going into the combustion cycle. If it just turns on and just hoses away, it's just filling the cylinder for that couple of seconds. It's just pissing fuel in. So just to see what it's doing when you're cranking. So we know that right now, if I touch the power at all, this is going to be injected. Killer ohms, and then whatever time you turn it off, it's going straight back to having continuity with it. It means, again, it's going to be active. So until the power's taken away, it's just injecting fuel. If you check it on, let's check it on one of the other ones. So this is one that seems to be working okay. So again, so the orange and green, that's our power, and this is our trip. So if I go down the trip now, no continuity. So that's fine. That's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But then to test, so now the next thing to do is to test whether to see if it's a wiring issue or whether it's an ECU issue. It's actually really easy. So all we need to know is there any continuity to air when it's unplugged. So right now, we've got 23 ohms. So that means it's going to be active. Let's unplug these. Oh, it's now said 0. It didn't say that a minute ago when I was on that bolt. But it's enough for it to be active. 30 ohms is enough for it to activate. And now, with the ECU unplugged, because the ECU's there, do the same test, no continuity. So it means then that there's not a wiring issue on the bike, because as soon as I'm removing the ECU out of the circuit, it goes, which means there is no break in the wire up until the ECU. Which means, unfortunately, it's highly likely that the ECU is not a happy chappy and has failed. So for whatever reason, I mean, it's been handwritten on race. So I don't really understand. Very accurate, that, isn't it? Just to scribble it on. But for whatever reason, this inside has got lots of little switches, obviously, that's able to control things, and one of the switches is clearly broken. It's because it had one thing on there and then they've taken it off. I like how it's got black pen underneath it as well.
No.
So this is just going to be part 1. Part 2 is we're actually going to have to get a second ECU. So we're going to get another ECU on it, and then we'll plug that in and then do the test on that and see what that does. Unfortunately, there's not much more testing we can do that's going to be worth anything. So it's get another ECU, get that on, and then try again.